My name is Brian Wish. I'm an entrepreneur, CEO, and pathfinder. If I've learned anything in life, it's that self-discovery is a critical part of living intentionally, building meaningful relationships, and achieving the future we see for ourselves. In July of 2021, I sold all my possessions, headed west, and began a quest to live a fuller and more meaningful life. The experience helped me truly understand the power of a single moment. And through my conversations with leaders from all walks of life, I've seen how that one phone call, heartbreak, diagnosis, or lost job can transform the entire course of our lives. In this podcast, I sit down with entrepreneurs, influencers, and experts across industries to talk through the events that changed everything. Together, we'll relive the make or break decisions, hard conversations, periods of despair and hope, chance encounters, and everything that followed. For over 20 years, Deborah Grayson Riegel has been teaching, coaching, and writing about leadership communication, helping global leaders and teams communicate more effectively in a dynamic and diverse marketplace. As an adjunct faculty at Duke University, the Fuqua School of Business, and a leadership communications instructor at Columbia Business School Executive Education, Deborah designs and delivers custom programs and enhances the skills and impact of senior executives across various industries and sectors. Deborah is also a prolific author and columnist with the #1 bestselling book, Go to Help, 31 Strategies to Offer, Ask, and Accept Help, and has written multiple articles on topics such as feedback, influence, conflict, and collaboration. She draws on a background in cognitive and social psychology, appreciative inquiry, and improv comedy to offer practical research and engaging solutions to common workplace challenges. Deborah's mission to help leaders balance professional credibility with personal authenticity and to foster a culture of learning and growth in their organizations. Deborah's life changed, winning national recognition during high school, launched her career into the stratosphere. Hear the story on today's One Away Show. Hey, Deb. Welcome to the One Away Show.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. You showed up with a stranger today, so I really appreciate that.
Don't tell my mother. Even though I'm 52, she'd still be mad that I'm showing up with a stranger.
Look, I'm going to tell your dog, and it's going to be game over. So
okay, then you're going to be the one in trouble. Fair enough.
That's right. That's right. For those listening, I have tough competition with the dog after this, so we gotta end on a readily available time.
That's right. I've got a pet and a cuddle and a scratch coming up after this.
The pressure is real.
Yes.
All right. So what is the one away moment that you want to share with us today, Deb?
I think the one away moment, I'm going to try not to knock over my whole bookcase.
Uh-oh.
I think this is my one away moment. So
Tell us more.
Yeah. So is this a visual medium or should I describe what I'm doing?
You should tell us all. I want all the descriptors.
So I'm holding up something that sort of looks like a silver Oscar. It's a trophy. And this is the trophy I won in 1989. And if you were not yet born then, I don't want to hear it. But the trophy that I won in 1989 as the national champion in public speaking and speech writing, an event called Original Oratory. So starting at age 14, I joined my high school speech and debate team and spent every day after school practicing public speaking. I spent every weekend traveling around North America and practicing public speaking. I spent my summers at speech camp, which is a very embarrassing thing to admit to a stranger and a whole host of other strangers listening. And my junior year of high school, I went to the national championships, but I lost, and the person that I lost to is Ketanji Brown Jackson, who is our newest Supreme Court justice. So if you're going to lose, that's how you lose. And then my senior year of high school, I won. And starting at age 17, I started getting hired by schools and summer programs and corporations to teach public speaking and communication skills. And I've been doing this professionally ever since.
Wow. First off, congratulations
Thank you
on the victory. Seems like a great victory for you. Now,
yes.
My question to you, so sounds like is skyrocketed you since in certain avenues, but I think what's also important to think about is like what preceded, what drew you into the speech side and this artistic side of yourself? Like, what was the
Yeah.
initial, I'm interested in exploring this as an avenue for my development?
Yeah. So I think growing up, I had an instinct to perform. So I was involved in school plays. I was involved in elementary school in storytelling competitions. In middle school, I competed in science contests. And a part of a part of it is science, but the other part was being able to talk about your experiment. I won the New York City Science Fair when I was in ninth grade. And I think it was less about the science and more about my presentation of it. And I just knew that getting up in front of a group of people and sharing yourself and your ideas was something that didn't intimidate me. It was something that actually felt thrilling. And it was something that I could get better at. And I like being really good at things. And my speech and debate team gave me an opportunity in a very competitive high school in New York City where people, regularly got perfect scores on their SATs. I was never going to compete in that milieu, but I had an area where I could compete and could be the best. And this was it.
It sounds like, so like the arts were kind of thrusted upon you or celebrated, or you didn't have this situation where it's like you are limited to go in that direction. Like it
I was not limited by anything other than my own self-doubt or anxiety. My parents really encouraged me to do absolutely anything that I wanted. And my parents also believed and communicated to me that I would be successful in anything I put my mind to, which is kind of an amazing way to grow up.
Yeah, absolutely. What's coming over me, and I want to unpack that a little bit,
Yeah,
is have you seen Dead Poets Society?
of course.
And there's a
Yes.
scene in there where I forget his name, my favorite movie. He goes into the play and the dad finds out, and it's,
Yes.
World War III, but or maybe four at this point. But and so it sounds like you had parents though that really celebrated your creative gifts, pushed you in that direction, and like enabled that for you, even if you didn't always
Oh,
see it for
and
yourself.
showed up to everything. If we had something we had to videotape, and again, like this was in the 80s, so videotaping was not getting out a phone, it was getting out a massive machine. My parents would show up to videotape things. If I needed, money for costumes or to go on a trip or something like that, they figured it out. So I was completely supported, and I can't think of anything I would have said I wanted to try, maybe other than drugs, where they would have said no.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's
And they
cool.
might have said yes to drugs, but who knows? That's a different podcast.
Great. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, totally. Well, I'm glad, it's so interesting how children are raised, and it's neat that you had parents that fostered that for you. And
Yeah.
so, like, tell me this, when that feeling of sometimes trying something new, you talked about
Yes.
improv, but like, you're tapping on something and it brings that aliveness out of you, and you're like, oh, this is interesting. Like, when were your first moments in that, when it came to the arts and going for the speech competition? When did you start to recognize, like, hey, there's something here?
I think I probably recognized it early on in elementary school, getting cast in, one of three Dorothys in The Wizard of Oz and winning a district-wide storytelling competition. And then I think every time I sort of tried and won, that was really good reinforcement for me. The downside of that was I have a sort of delayed growth mindset, right? So growth mindset is the belief that you can learn, you can grow, you may not be good at something, but you're just not good at it yet. And because I found the things that I was good at pretty early, my growth mindset didn't develop as quickly as I developed. And so there's still a part of me that feels like if I'm not going to be good at it right away,
Hmm.
I probably won't try it. And I'm trying to work on that for myself because, God willing, I've got a lot of years ahead of me and I want to be able to try new things. And I can't let I'm not good at it, day one, get in the way.
Got it. You did mention your age on the podcast. You're pretty forthright about that. But if you're talking to you look like you're like 10, 15 years younger than what you said. What's the secret to health and longevity? Come on.
The secret, and it's so funny. I will tell you, I went to get my eye exam the other day, and the doctor said to me, he said, he was like, do you have any questions? I said, no, I don't have any questions. He said, I have one for you. What is your skincare routine? Because you look 20 years younger than you are. I said, how do you know how old I am? He said, I have your records. I said, oh, right. I didn't think about that. It is honestly, it's my skin. I'm very vain. I'm not vain about a lot of things, but I'm very vain about the skin on my face. And I have very good skin on my face. And I have a really good light here. And the combination, and my skin. Don't forget the skin part. So yes, it's the light in the skin.
It couldn't work without the skin.
That's right. That's right. Otherwise, the light would be scary if it was just, bones and muscles. So, but thank you. And I am grateful for every year. And like my hair goals is Jamie Lee Curtis with that gorgeous white, silver hair. So I'm aging naturally and I'm not fighting it. I have had too many people in my life who died young. I will take every year.
She's glowing.
Thank you.
So Deb, tell us, you won, back to this moment in time.
Yeah.
We sidetracked, but we'll go where
the conversation goes. No problem.
She's a national award-winning improvist. For those that don't know, I mean, unbelievable. I'm kidding. We're improving, but so Deb, what was the talk on that you gave when you won?
Yeah. So the talk that I gave when I won was about, and I think this is so ironic. It is about the danger of taking advice from other people without doing your homework.
Huh.
And now I am somebody who both coaches and also gives advice for a living, which are not the same thing. And, part of my job is to tell people I can share with you the research, I can share with you my experience, I can share with you what's worked for my clients, but you have to use your own best judgment here.
Totally. I like what you said a lot about your coaching and giving advice are two separate skill sets.
Yes.
Or two separate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so you, just for context, you were how old when you gave that talk?
I was 16 and 17.
I mean, that's a very evolved thinking at that age. Why that? I mean, I didn't learn that until I think I was 26 in a relationship, and my mom was like, here's the difference between empathy and giving advice. And I was like,
yeah.
Oh, but you were thinking about this real young.
You know what? If I'm not sure what the answer is, I am going to make up this. So the year before, my talk where I won a bunch of things, but not nationals, was about having anxiety. And I have anxiety. I've written several books about anxiety. I've passed anxiety on to my children. I think that there was a big part of that where I realized I'm taking a lot of advice from other people on anxiety and it's not really helping me. And I just sort of thought, well, if they're telling me what to do, it should work. And so I think part of that was, you actually need to trust your instincts. That doesn't mean don't do your research, but you've got some good instincts. And I think at 16 and 17, I probably had some really crappy instincts and also some really finely honed instincts.
Seems like you were tuned in at a young age.
I think so. Yeah, I think I was. And it's really only in retrospect now that I realize that I was. But my kids are also really tuned in at an early age. And, they're very young adults. And what they are aware of and the conversations that they bring, I find myself sort of blown away. So maybe I'll give my younger self a little bit of credit too.
Yeah. I mean, these kids are so smart that are popping up. I have a 13-year-old sister and I'm like, whoa, oh my God.
I know. I learn so much more from my kids than I do from any other place. And they're typically teaching me about me, which feels awesome and insulting at the same time. But, they've got my number. They've got my number. And so they know what they're doing.
Sounds like you've learned how to raise healthy, thoughtful, vibrant children who know how to tell their mother how it is. It's great.
I accept the compliment and the challenge in that. Yes.
Good vibes here only. This is the way to do it Tuesday.
Yeah.
So you won this incredible competition at the ripe age of 16 on
17. Yep.
Coaching, giving advice, not giving advice, doing your homework on people before you take advice. I mean,
yes.
How did that make you think about your future trajectory of where you wanted to go? How did that catapult you?
So when I went to college, I was really torn between being a doctor. So I went to University of Michigan, go blue, enrolled pre-med. I was torn between being a doctor and a comedy writer. Which I, normally would be like, do I want to be a doctor or like a neurobiologist, right? They're usually closer cousins. And these two were not cousins. But I realized I had these two passions. Number one was helping people, and the other was making people laugh. And I actually think that the job that I'm in now, I do both, right? So I help people, but when I do a keynote speech, I promise you that people are laughing while they're learning. So I feel a little bit like I got to be a doctor without the blood and without having to pass organic chemistry, because I was not going to pass organic chemistry. And so, yeah, when I was in college, I was taking a bunch of science classes until I realized I don't like this and I'm not very good at it. And I helped found the University of Michigan's first improv comedy troupe. We were doing sketch comedy and then we started doing improv.
Wow.
And when we graduated, we all moved to New York. I moved back to New York because that's where I'm from. And we all moved to New York and tried to make a go of being professional comedians while we were being administrative assistants during the day. And then a couple of years in, we sort of sat down. It was 6 of us, and we said, all right, we're getting to the place where this could potentially really move ahead quickly. We were meeting the right people in the industry. And are we really committed? Because if we're really committed, we probably can't spend our days as administrative assistants. We've got to really be in the entertainment industry. And of the 6 of us, the 2 New Yorkers said, no, I'm out. And the 4 people not from New York said, yes, I'm in. And so the other New Yorker is a doctor, and I'm an executive coach. And the other 4 people are all firmly in the entertainment industry, and they're doing it, and they, win Emmys and other kinds of things. And so they really pursued it and are successful.
That's fascinating. Well, it's so cool. And so you're at Michigan. I mean, you helped get a whole club and organization like off the ground.
Yes. I mean, I wasn't the one who ran it, but I was a founding member of it. So
you were a key ingredient.
I was a key ingredient. That's right. I was the cumin.
That's right.
Yeah.
So what was this? I'm just curious. I mean, I've told you before we chatted, I've taken 2 improv classes, life-changing.
Life-changing.
The teacher is such a bright spot in my mind when I think of him. At that time, again, this is just because I don't know, what was the stage of improv in the world and like on college campuses and like getting something like that off the ground? Like, was it like when you think of improv now, I think it has a very positive brand around it. Back then, like, what was that?
Yeah. Yeah. So just for a little bit of context, this was in the early 90s as opposed to like the 1930s. But that being said, in terms of getting it off the ground, again, we had a bunch of us that were in a sketch comedy troupe. One of the members of our sketch comedy troupe who grew up down the road from Second City was like, we should do improv. And a bunch of us, it was like 6 of us decided, yeah, we're in, let's do improv. So I just got picked. I didn't have to do anything. So that was pretty easy. And the state of improv, I mean, Second City was really big. And in New York, we had Chicago City Limits, which was pretty big. And Second City was just getting ready. Our senior year of college, Second City was bringing a theater to Detroit. And in fact, we all auditioned for the Second City Detroit Theater. And I think I made it to the semifinals, and the founding member of our company made it to the finals. Ultimately, we didn't make it in. And we would go every year and go to the National College Comedy Competition. And there were improv troupes from around the country. So it was a real thing. It wasn't the sort of thing, I think one of the big differences was, there was not, for lack of a better term, there was not internet. Like, I'm older than the internet. And so you weren't filming yourself and putting it online and trying to be discovered, and you didn't know what the competition was out there. It was pretty insular in that way, which I think was actually really nice and supportive because none of us were trying to make it on our own while also trying to make it an improv troupe.
Interesting. Yeah, it's I just appreciate the historical context. I'm fascinated by improv at large as just a domain of expertise and just origin. But
I love it. I think of it as the greatest training I've had for my career. Hands down.
Here's an interesting question for you, and I'm not saying I do this because I think there's degrees of this, but do you, given your improv background and
Yeah.
like maybe your trust of yourself under certain situations,
Yes.
do you find like how do you here's a better question. I know we're riffing here, but how do you find how your preparation routines have changed over the years, given your background in improv?
So, in order for you to be good at improv, and this is probably something you know from your classes, it is not without structure, right? It's not
Right.
without rules and structure. There is a lot of structure and a lot of rules that make it safe to play. And
Yeah.
so, in my business, I have a lot of structure and not a lot of rules, but very important rules that then make it safe to play. Right. So, an example, if I'm thinking about myself up in front of the audience, speaking, giving a keynote speech, and something happens, my rule is it's not about me, it's about my audience. Like, how can I protect the learning goals of my audience as opposed to defending my ego or something like that? So, that's a rule that as long as I follow the rule of doing what's in service of my learners and my audience, I can then riff because I know what rule I need to follow. What's going to come out of my mouth, I don't know, but I know I'm never going to embarrass my audience. Right? So there's rules and structure that help me have a very light touch and not have to over prepare because I know the rules and structure.
Interesting. So I'm going to connect this to even work today.
Yeah.
So you, I think, learned at a younger age, right? Like you can thrive in environments with the certain guardrails, but if you create the right variables to play, you can show up as yourself and be a little more comfortable in your,
Yes.
right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's even true in a coaching conversation. So when I got trained and certified as a coach, there are a lot of ethics. There are a lot of core competencies that you have to hit. There are a lot of things that make something coaching and not coaching. And once you know the rules, then you get to play.
So you beat me to the punch. You're too quick. So thank you.
No problem. That's the New
The,
Yorker in me. I'm always, 10 paces ahead of everyone.
look, someone's got to do it.
Someone's got to do it.
Yeah, it's funny. I think I've slowed down over the years. I moved from the East Coast to the West Coast, and I'm just
That'll do it.
I'm faster here than most, but slower than the people in New York. It's weird. So, you mentioned, today you're a coach, and you're working with a lot of sounds like leaders, executive leaders. You said, and I want to kind of unpack that and talk about your books and your kind of all the things you do, speak, write, coach. But how do you create an environment of play in a client relationship, which is often met with so much seriousness and pressure, some to a degree around like performance?
Yeah. So before I work with any leader, we have what's called a fit call, right? A call to make sure that we're the right match for each other. And I show up fully as me in that fit call because I don't think of it as like, oh, this is my opportunity to win this client. It's, oh, this is my opportunity to see if we're going to enjoy our conversations and, jive with each other. And so I show up as my full personality. I let the client know that, like, feel free to bring your full personality. I want you to know that I'm going to take our work seriously, but I don't take myself so seriously. I'm an anti-perfectionist. You are welcome to make mistakes. And, one of my favorite things is when I'm coaching a leader and they, let an F-bomb drop or something, and they're like, oh my God, I'm sorry. I was like, no, now that you've done that, I feel safe that I can do that too. So thank you. And so I just show up as myself and I tell the client who I am. And if they want somebody who has, I'm not going to say gravitas because I bring a lot of gravitas to my work, but a more serious demeanor, then we weren't the right fit for each other.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. It sounds like you take your level of care around who you bring in seriously to make sure there's long-term, fruits of the labor to be built.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You can play for longer periods of time. I don't think we've connected the dots here. And what I'm curious about is, okay, we had improv and speaking, your club, Michigan, you've kind of gone to the arts. Clearly, it sounds like you were very self-aware human from a young age. Seems like that's carried forward to this day. When did you like make the connection? Hey, I want to serve other people in their careers and trajectories, and I want to help make great leaders and executives and Like when did that switch go off
Yeah.
for you? And why?
So we actually left off the story at just the right place and time. So we had this conversation about, are we going to go into entertainment? And two of us said no, and four people said yes. And so I was like, well, what am I going to do? And the answer was, I don't know, but I know that I'm really good at school. So I'm going to go to grad school with something maybe that I want to do. So I ended up going to Social Work School of Columbia, because I was back in New York. And I thought, well, maybe I'll be a therapist. My grandfather was a psychiatrist. I had seen therapists since I was young. This is a good way that I could help people. And about 3/4 of the way through my program, I was like, oh, I don't want to be a therapist at all. No, this is not what I want to do. And I reached out to my advisor and I said, I got one more semester and I am lost. I don't know what I want to do. And in fact, I'm pretty sure that what I thought I wanted to do is not what I want to do. And she was like, I think she said to me, are you open to taking something? I signed up for like a class in sex therapy because I thought that would be interesting. And she's like, are you open to dropping this course? I was like, well, it would have to be something really interesting. And she said, we have a course called Training and Staff Development. And I think it might be interesting for you. And I was like, yep, that sounds interesting. So I took the course, and day one, I realized that, yep, this is it. This is absolutely it. This is what I do when I teach public speaking, but this is on a broader scale. And that I just knew from first day of class, this is something that I like, and this is something I'm going to be good in. And that was, 1997.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Super interesting. I have a lot of thoughts or questions on this. Not
Yeah.
thoughts, more questions, but
Sure.
and thoughts. But what did you not like about the therapy side?
I probably wasn't very good at creating an emotional, I don't know what the like firewall between me and the client. So I noticed myself getting sort of emotionally triggered when my clients would get emotionally triggered. I noticed that my sense of injustice got ahead of my sense of self-management. So one of my internships was working at a middle school in Harlem, and many of the kids attending that school just had really, really hard home experiences. And I wanted just to rescue everyone. And I wanted to fight for injustice and all those sorts of things. And I was having a hard time managing that. And I just think the thing about coaching, even though I didn't know it was a profession at the time, that was more suited for me is this distinction between therapy and coaching. And one of which is therapy helps people get back to sort of normal functioning, and coaching takes people from normal functioning to, moving above that. And I was more interested in working with people from the line and above rather than below the line to the line. Right. So it's really the distinction between like a physical therapist and an Olympic trainer. I wanted to be that Olympic trainer. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think you bring up a good point though, right? Like you need the things below the line sometimes though to go above the line.
Absolutely. Totally.
And when someone shows up at your fit call,
yeah,
and maybe they haven't done the work below the line, the coaching above the line maybe isn't going to be as effective.
So two things. Number one is when I went to coaching school, the first day of class, how many of you are here that have been trained as teachers, therapists, and social workers? And a bunch of us raised our hands, and they're like, you are about to be our hardest students. And we're like, what? We think we're the best students. They're like, you're going to be our hardest students because you've learned a set of skills in a different context. And we're going to teach you similar skills, but you're going to be using them really differently. And so I had to relearn how to listen, how to help identify desired outcomes, how to ask questions that were not diagnostic questions, but different kinds of questions. So similar skill sets used in a different context. Now, when I meet a client in a fit hall, I am really clear about the sorts of below the line mindsets and behaviors that I can help them with. So a big part of my work is helping people who are anxious about presentations and conversations, helping them manage that anxiety is certainly something that I feel prepared to do. And I'm clear about what below the line things are clinical as opposed to coaching. And that's where my background in, some degree of clinical social work is helpful, is that I know when there is something going on in addition to a coaching need, and I can tell the client that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I can't treat it, but I have no problem saying, it sounds like there might be something else going on. Can I share some of my hunches with you? And I'm not a diagnostician.
Yeah, it's so interesting because, to your point, but I think your perspective is awesome. It's like there are people who can serve you below the line and people who can help you above the line, and I'm here to help you above the line. But like getting the support below the line will help you above the line. And I thought a lot about this because I'll keep this very brief, but like I work with somebody.
It's your show. You get to talk.
I want to like just bring a perspective because
bring your perspective.
It's made me really think about the coaching and their therapy space, because I have to a degree a coach for the business, but I also have a person I work with as a more kind of personal side and below the line. But that below the line often tethers to above the line as well. Mm-hmm. And I have found this mix where there can be both the therapy side blended with the below the line and blended with the above the line from the same individual actually is very important. And usually it's because he understands what's happening below the line, the above the line, things that come my way, are they stick faster, you know? Mm-hmm. And so anyways, it seems like you've thought about this why I asked in a very holistic way. And that's so neat that you've done that, because I think
about it really from an ethics perspective. Like, I'm very clear what I should be working on and what I should not be working on in coaching. And I also want to make a distinction. So if I have a leader who wants to work with me and they say, and by the way, I'm in therapy and I'm working on anxiety, depression, ADHD, whatever it is, that actually is a green flag for me. Oh, they're getting support for below the line. If I have somebody who comes to me and says and by the way, I know that I'm also struggling with depression, but I'd like to get some coaching first, that's not how it's going to work with me. I was like, actually, if I can share my perspective, I asked for permission to share my perspective, getting the depression handled will actually make the coaching dramatically more effective.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to go talk to a therapist first, and then you and I can reconnect?
This is a refreshing perspective on executive leadership and the business.
What's refreshing about it? I mean, to me, it seems so natural to me that it doesn't seem new. So I'd love to hear how you see it.
What's refreshing to me is I just relate a lot to the way you're describing it. And maybe the vocabulary you're using around it and the process in which you're saying, this is how I work.
Yeah.
Because, perhaps I'm lucky where I've been able to see it from both sides. And so I resonate with the approach that you're taking. And to me, that's refreshing versus I think I see a lot of people fail from coaching. I'm not a coach, but I feel like I know a lot of people who work with coaches or, know a lot of executive leaders or, and maybe there's a lot more work below the line that has yet to be acknowledged or done that is inhibiting the growth on the above the line things that which you're so equipped to take people to and transform them around. So I just think to vocalize it in that way, I think it's a very, I don't know if I'm in your shoes, this would be a very sticky article, a very hit a nerve, in a client, because it's going to make me take a inside look at who I am and how I'm showing up in the world and how if I'm getting the most out of my work with a coach,
Yeah. I hope it would, right? That's what I hope. And it goes back to what we were saying before, which is, coaching has rules. And there is a rule, there is a core competency and a code of ethics that you cannot treat a client in a psychological capacity that's not within, unless you are, a licensed therapist. But so it's how I get to it is really the part where I get to play how I say it. But it's pretty black and white for me of what is in service of a client and what is not in service of a client, what is violating my code of ethics and what is aligned with my code of ethics.
Yeah.
And because I know my rules, I get to say it in a way that feels authentic to me and hopefully lands with the client.
Yeah. Awesome. This is a good bookmark for this chapter of the conversation, but I appreciate you going down this alleyway. You had no idea you were going to talk
Sure.
about all these things today.
I had no idea. Absolutely
Like
no idea.
this stranger talking to me about deep dives in my work, and we're making it happen. This is good. So we talked about kind of philosophy around coaching to a degree on that topic. Your interest in this and where you're from, and what I'm really curious about, and kind of some of the things you're saying are like when you work with somebody, right, and someone shows up at your doorstep, they pass the fit test, and you're like,
Yes.
I'm ready to dive in with you.
Yes.
Like, how do in my world, we think about journeys and phases and like how that evolves to a degree, an individual identity. For you, like you're also working with identities, but you're working with identities in a different way. Like,
Yes.
how do you look at when someone comes to you as here or here, and how do you think about taking them to the above the line places that you see for them? Like, what does that look like to you, and how does that kind of shape for you in the work that you do with them?
I think there's a few different answers, none of which are complete. So I will just throw a few things out there which are not complete answers. So the very first thing you said that struck me was when they show up at my door. That's a restraining order. So nobody shows up at my door.
Well,
But
I'm trying to make it visual.
Right. No, I know. I was like, oh, then I've got a security problem, not a coaching problem. Okay. So when I start, a conversation, by the time I'm starting to have a conversation with a client, they've already met me and I've already met them. And I already know a little bit about them and they know a little bit about me. So by the time we start our official work, they've chosen me, right? I don't really work with people where I was chosen for them. It tends not to work very well. So we've chosen each other and we're hopefully both bought into the process. They will have filled out a pretty detailed discovery document where I ask them a lot of personal questions. And I also give them the option to answer the ones that feel meaningful and relevant to them, and the ones that don't, leave it out. But I know a lot about them from their written document, including, belief systems they have, who they are when they're being their best self, who they are when they're being their most stressed self, right? So we're already starting to unpack the idea that people have multiple identities, right? We show up in the world in lots of different ways. We show up in the world in ways that other people interpret us that may not feel true to us. And I will share with you that I recently took a brilliant course with my colleague, Dr. Priya Nalkur, and it was on JEDI, Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion for Coaches. And so now, something I've added to my coaching practice in the last few months is the idea of bringing people's identities, their diversity, and even the potential power dynamic in our relationship right to the forefront of the call, right? And then I can even start with myself that says, I identify as a cisgender, heterosexual, Jewish, upper middle class woman. And the fact that I grew up in New York and my parents grew up in New York, and my grandparents grew up in New York really shaped the way I think and the way that I talk. Tell me some of the ways that you identify yourself. And so that conversation, which was something that I might not ever get to, is now at the front of my conversations. And that helps me understand how this person thinks about themselves and thinks about the world.
Got it. Fascinating. I'm really I'm just sorry, I'm used to kind of stop my questioning.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, no, it's I think you can tell, I think what I'm picking up is like as you're talking, right? Like you are speaking with so much passion around kind of what you're doing. And you are like, you clearly shows like how much you care, right? And not just build a business around something, but it's like you care about this impact. So when people do come to you, it's like you can make the changes in your life. Like as you think about like what's ahead for you, and like you think about like where you want to make change, but maybe you haven't made change yet. What does that look like for you directionally over the next 2, 3, 4 years?
Well, I'll start with a place where I'm hoping to make change, and then I can talk about some places where I just keep getting in my own way because I'm not just a coach; I'm also a client, like Hair Club for Men. So I am working on a book right now with my colleague Fiona McCauley, who is the head of an organization called Wild, and she also teaches entrepreneurship at Georgetown. And we're writing a book about women and failure. The idea of the book is to help women really rewrite their relationship with failure. Women tend to personalize failure more than men do. Women tend to see failures in the system as a personal failure. Women have a different set of rules and a different set of expectations, and it keeps women from aiming as high as they can and from bouncing back as quickly as they should when it comes to failure. So I see for myself, I was just on another podcast today. I get around. And the podcast interviewer said to me, like, where do you see yourself in a year from now? I was like, I see myself on a big stage at women's conferences, helping women rewrite their relationship with failure. And it's something that I feel very, very strongly about. And I'm so excited for that to be my 2025.
Wow. So
Yeah.
let's, and do you just, I'm going to bring this around. Do you
Yeah.
work with more women leaders?
I typically work with more women leaders.
And
Yes.
so, I mean, this is interesting. Like, it's just because men have bigger egos, and when they fail, they don't like. Why do women personalize failure more?
Well, women personalize failure more because the feedback that women get from the time that they are girls is very different from what they get when they are boys and men. One of the factors is you think about while things have certainly changed in terms of sports. You think about the fact that young boys tend to have traditionally played more sports than girls have. And so a boy's batting average was public information, right? A boy's ERA was public information. They're used to having their statistics about their wins and losses be public information. And they might take it personally, but it's, often just about developing the skills. Women have a different relationship with that and are often told to keep their failures private because it will cost them their professional credibility, which it can. And if you're a woman who is additionally marginalized because you're a woman of color or disabled or any one of a number of other categories, those failures become failures that are representative of an entire race or class. And that's really scary.
Got it. Okay. Wow. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of factors that go into that across the number.
A lot of factors. Yes. In fact, there will be a whole book about it at the end of this year. Yes.
In fact, I might know the author.
You might, if you're real lucky, the author. Yeah.
I don't know if luck.
Maybe they'll come back.
Yeah, maybe. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe we can really dive into this.
Those authors don't want to push it, but maybe they'll get invited back.
Those authors always push it. Trust me.
I know.
Yeah. Well, first off, congrats on kind of having a voice for other women leaders.
Thank you.
I think it's being in the heart of San Francisco and kind of, in startups and seeing just women who are 2% of capital goes to women. I think uplifting women and creating paths for them, I think it's rare. I like to see women succeed, and not just the house, but also in their career. I think it's inspiring, and I think the more that you can help women get back on their feet after a failure is powerful work. So
absolutely, thank you.
Yeah, of course. So, if you ever have a stumble, I'm here to help you too. So,
I appreciate that. I believe you mean it. So thank you.
I do. And
I know you do.
You know how I'm going to help you. I'm going to use your book that you write to do it. So
boom.
You're going to good. So Deb, this has been, by the way, like super enjoyable. I mean, that's what I love about this show. You just meet amazing people. So thanks for bringing your full self here. From where you started your coaching practice, what did it look like? Where is it today? And did you ever see it getting to where it is?
Let me start with the third question first, which is no, I never saw it getting to what it was, to what it is. When I first started my coaching practice, I actually was doing a lot of workshops and training, and people would ask me if I would coach them, and I would say, sure, having never been to coaching school, not knowing what coaching was, and I was using what I call the vestigial wings of my social work background. And I was like, oh, no, I remember I didn't want to do this. And then I was like, hold on, maybe coaching is different from therapy. And before I decide, no, I don't like this, I don't want to do it, maybe let me go to coaching school and learn what it is. And that way I can make an educated decision about whether I want to do it or not want to do it. And of course, I went to coaching school, I fell in love with coaching, and then really started to, double down on my practice. I would say, this is 20 years in. So I would say 20 years ago when I first started, I would say that 99% of my practice was professionals who work in the Jewish nonprofit sector, so a very small niche. 10 years ago, it was probably 70% people who work in the Jewish nonprofit sector and 30% corporate. And now I would say it's probably 85% corporate and 50% Jewish nonprofit sector.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. Are you Jewish?
I am.
Awesome. I'm not, but I would say I feel like a member of the tribe sometimes. I have so many friends and mentors who are Jewish, and
Well, we need all the allies we can get now.
Look, I mean, I'd convert. I mean, I don't want to say that lightly, but seriously, I feel like I love the community. It feels like it's where I'm supposed to be. So,
we can talk. There's a different podcast for that, but if you want to convert, we have you. I don't know if you know that if you want to convert, we have to reject you 3 times.
Well, that's fine. You can be my first rejection. I have plenty of others. It's fine.
Yeah, I don't think I have the authority to do that. I would rather accept you and then, let the bosses reject you.
That's right.
But yes, and we will take all the allyship we can get right now.
Look, I'm an ally for sure.
Awesome. That makes me happy. Thank you.
No, of course. No, it's awesome that you support your community and women, and it seems like your heart's in the right place, your mind's in the right place, and I'm really happy for you and just the career you've built, where you're going,
Thank you.
all the things you're doing. It's inspiring. So
thank you. I feel very lucky to have this career.
Yeah. Well, look, Deb, where can people find you? Where can they reach out to you? What book should they buy that if you've written? Like, what talk should they watch that you've done? Give us the full shebang.
All right. So they can find me online at deborahgraysonriegel.com. I'll make sure you know how to spell it when the podcast comes out. They can find my Substack, which is everything I've written and all of my online courses at Deborah Grayson Riegel's Substack. I don't really know how you find a Substack, but go to Substack and look up my name. You'll find me. And that's my books, my courses, my articles, my YouTube videos. That's a really good place to visit me. And come find me on LinkedIn. I'm a very, very good pen pal. But if you reach out to me, you've got to say that you heard me on Brian's podcast. Otherwise, I won't know you. So put that in there. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're going to take care of all of it. So
awesome.
Cool. Any closing words for us today, Deb, before we let you fly?
I appreciate your something that we learned in coaching school was to approach our clients with adoring curiosity. And I felt adoring curiosity from you, which is it's lovely to be on the other side of that adoring curiosity rather than just giving it. It was nice to get it.
Well, that's it's nice to hear. Thank you. I was not trained, but I just tried to show up in my best form, even on a sick day, and I'm glad I could, meet expectations. They were really high coming in. I mean, this dog, me. I mean, it's a lot to compete with.
A previous podcast today. I mean, my gosh, I know.
I mean, where am I in the ranking order? I hope you go to bed tonight and you give thought to what the best part of your day was. And every day I do my 3 ups and 3 downs. You will definitely be among the ups, and there's only 3 of them. So your dog, your other podcast, and this podcast.
That's it. That we're done.
Good. I'm glad. Yeah. Well, look, I'm glad I could express my adoring curiosity. I'm glad you felt it. And I hope you keep giving that gift to other people. And I'm sure the world will be a better place for it.
Thank you. Thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you for joining me on the One Away Show. If you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, please leave a review and follow us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Have a one-away moment you'd like to share? Follow me on Twitter or Instagram at BrianWish_, or reach out to me on LinkedIn and tell me about the moment that altered your life. The One Away Show is produced by Arcbound, a company dedicated to helping entrepreneurs, experts, and visionaries launch authentic personal brands. From message development to podcast production, social media content generation, and book writing, we work with you to create your arc. Head to arcbound.com to learn more. Thank you for listening, and please join me next time on The One Away Show.